everybody. It's 3 minutes past 11:30, so I guess we can go get started. Is this too loud, or is it all right for you guys? Okay. Don't be shy. If you guys want to move forward so you can see the slide presentation. My name is Brett Spivey, and along with David Giordano, we are dedicated staff to the NC OneMap program. We do work for the Center for Geographic Information and Analysis in the Office of the State CIO, and we are tasked daily with implementing this vision of NC OneMap. Is that still too? You can tell I'm an expert using these. How about that? Is that better? Okay. So, how many people in here, I guess I got to read the slide. How many people in here are familiar with NC OneMap? By show of hands. So a couple people. Thanks. The program has been around for about 8 or 9 years, and the philosophy behind it when it was first envisioned is the same as it is today, if not more so. And that is that the general philosophy is that the sharing of information is good. Certainly there are pieces of information about our private lives, national security or local security related pieces of information that we don't want just thrown around. But in general, the sharing of information is good. Over time, it can increase the accuracy of that information, and that information becomes more valuable and more people that use it. I keep doing this. So traditionally, when we started NC OneMap way back when, it was really targeting the GIS user community, the GIS professional in local government, the GIS guy who sits at the workstation, or the contractor that's in that field. But as time has gone on, as technology, people become more advanced with technology, certainly with mobile devices, that user group does no longer suffice us for our information. Taking a survey, we found out that just about everybody uses it. I mean, everybody finds value in geospatial information. Google Maps, Bing Maps, it's become commonplace. Where's the nearest restaurant? That sort of thing. So certainly we've noticed that our consumers have changed from people that are in the industry to really just about everybody. We have the citizen activists, people that are in GIS industries or industries related to that, certainly the GIS professionals, and even in the education field. I mean, it's easy to think, wow, universities use that, but we actually have high school and even in some cases middle schoolers contacting us asking about this. So with the idea that sharing of information is good, a lot of time and effort has been spent in not only creating information, but maintaining it. And that's not just in the geospatial, I'm scared of this speaker, that's not just in the geospatial realm, but in the regular data you have in-house as it is, spreadsheets, things like that. I mean, those things were not born overnight. And maintaining those is not free. I mean, that takes a lot of effort and a lot of money in some cases. And that's certainly true with geospatial data. I mean, statewide, in local government, as you folks well know, and at the state as well, I mean, a lot of investment has been spent in developing and maintaining that data. And the goal of NC OneMap is to get return on those investments by making that data accessible to people that would find value in it. Whoops. So having said that, I mean, we just don't take any data set and throw it into NC OneMap. There are some characteristics that it has to have, and the first of which is that it's comprehensive. We certainly, events and world events and things that go on don't recognize borders. I mean, we see that recently with Ebola. We had the lady that was down in Texas and called the CDC and said, hey, I'm not feeling so well. And they said, oh, that's okay, fly to Ohio. Well, now she comes with Ebola. They're not worried just about her and who she may have been in contact with in Texas. Now it's everybody that was on that passenger list, the entire flight crew, anybody they may have been come in contact with since that time when she was diagnosed. So an exponential growth in problem and complexity. Anybody from Eastern North Carolina certainly remember Floyd, right? Floodwaters didn't recognize borders there. The coal ash spill in the Dan River. Or to change subjects just a little bit, I mean, economic development opportunities. Somebody, a company that's looking at North Carolina, look based on different criteria. You know, they don't go to just stopping at the county. They want to look at all potential sites within the state. So the data needs to be comprehensive. The second thing that we look for is that it also needs to be authoritative. How many people here have disclaimers on their site in some form or fashion? 99%. I would suggest to you that, and we do it as well, but I would suggest to you that even though you have 5 pop-up windows that tell them disclaiming all liability and that sort of thing, there's still an inherent belief upon the user that because it's coming from the government, there's some level of validity to it that exists where it might not otherwise. So the data needs to be authoritative. It needs to be well documented on how it was developed, how it's maintained, and where it came from. The third thing that we look for is also that it has to have a certain level of accuracy. And certainly when we're talking about geospatial information, that has a more definite connotation than perhaps other data types. So if we're talking about a satellite image that has a resolution of 100 meters, I mean, there's a certain level of accuracy and expectation. We're not going to go down and try and find a car with that. But with something that has 6-inch resolution, that is a valid expectation, going back to the documentation aspect of it. So we look for data that is accurate. Speaking to that, I'm a Revolutionary War buff, I guess. I find it very interesting. And George Washington, before he was put in charge of the Continental Army, was actually a very prominent surveyor and map maker. And shortly after getting named general, one of the first things he noticed was that there were not accurate maps for him to plan battles against the British. And it was so desperate that he actually is quoted in a letter to Congress stating that it was one of the greatest hazards to their ability to fight the war. And really what he's not talking about was the development of these maps to hang on the wall. What he was talking about is having accurate information to analyze and then do something with. So that's one of the goals of OneMap, is to provide that. And of course, the difference is people want that accuracy, they want the comprehensiveness, they want it to be have some lineage and documentation to it, but the difference between the 1700s and today is they want it yesterday. I want it now. I want to be able to pull up my phone right here and I want to be able to see it. It's analogous to what I call getting a cup of coffee at McDonald's. You're on your way to work, we'll whip in and get a cup of coffee. 5 minutes, right? But I end up like the guy in the tan pickup truck. I'm behind the lady who's ordering at McDonald's for the first time, to the drive-through person who's trying to figure out what the pictures on the register mean. I'm sandwiched in this line, I can't get out, and oh my gosh, now I'm late for work. Frustration builds. What should be a simple task, which is get a cup of coffee to get to the main thing I need to do, which is get to work, has now become a big hassle. And that's the same thing that we strive to alleviate when it comes to data discovery. It's not finding the data that is your goal. It's getting that data and doing something with it to do whatever it is you need to accomplish is the goal. So it needs to be easily accessible. So the primary way that we currently do that is through the geospatial portal. And again, we take users from wherever they may be and provide them a one-stop location to provide comprehensive and authoritative data from a variety of state agencies, from a variety of local governments, and in some cases from the federal government, so that people can come there and do a centralized search. Behind the scenes, it's reaching out and touching all these disparate locations, but it's allowing you to get the information you need to do what it is you need to do in your daily business. So just one other comment before we flip over to a demo here. So certainly there is some data, and we're going to highlight a little bit of it here later in the presentation, that everyone in local government can use. Ortho imagery is for one. That's applicable to the zoning guy, to the utilities guy, to the lady who works in Parks and Rec. I mean, if your universe stops at borders, then all of these data are not going to be of value. Some of them will, but not all of them. It's when you start thinking beyond those borders that most of this data really starts to become applicable. And I would offer that it's still beneficial to the local governments, especially in the economic development opportunities, providing ease of access to get information and do site location analysis, public safety issues, 911, environmental issues. May not be directly, you may not go, oh, okay, I see the benefit here. But if you start thinking in a more regional aspect, it certainly does. So that, I'm going to toss it over to Dave and let him show you a quick demo on the various ways you can find information.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett. First of all, I wanted to demonstrate the NCLGISA geospatial portal. This is where we invite you to discover and use geospatial information. So here, a series of tabs along the top. The Home tab gives you some tutorial videos. If you're new to the website, you can browse through these YouTube videos. Keep a list of the most recently updated resources here on the right. It's the top 5 or so. So as new data is added or updated to the portal, it appears here on the right. So to start a search, you can simply just enter a keyword here, just type in water. And what that will do is do something.
Let me hold this for you so you can.
Because I'm going to jump over to the search tab, and you'll see the listings here on the right of the search results. And you see as I mouse over these, the extent changes on the map here on the right, on the left. And give you the geographic location of each of these resources. I can refine the search by clicking on more search options. I can search by content type. Map services are just a little bit more predominant ones, and downloadable data as well. So you can refine your search further by content type, category of data. All the data in the portal is categorized, so you can refine your search by that, or start date, end date, some temporal aspect of the data as well. You can also geographically refine your search by the map here. So if I want to zoom into this specific location, type in water again. You notice there were over 100 search results before when I did use a spatial filter. And when I use that filter, it's down to 93. So you can further refine your search results based on geography. If searching isn't your thing, you'd rather just browse, you can do that through the Browse tab. It's the same data. You can alphabetically look through the resources. You can refine the list here by typing in the keyword you desire. Content type, you see the same type of things, map services, downloadable data. You can peruse at your leisure through that. And also the topic categories, a lot of the same categories we saw on the in the search tab, where you can further refine searching. Another way to keep up to date with resources is to, everybody knows what RSS means. So you can subscribe to this RSS feed through whatever RSS reader you use. And every time there's an update to the GeoPortal, you see that reflected in your RSS reader. Let's talk about formats real quick. So what's the format of the data that you're going to receive? Well, it kind of depends on whether it's vector data, parcels, for instance, roads, or whether it's raster data, imagery, elevation, etc. So for vector data, here I've just done another search on water, and click on water supply watersheds. If I click download open there, you'll see here in the lower left, it's just a zip file that you get when you click that link. And inside of it is just it's a shape file, which is the de facto kind of standard for data interchange in vector format. Other links here on the resources and details. So this gets to Brett's kind of the buzzwords that he threw out earlier: authoritative, accessible, accurate, comprehensive. So this hopefully heads off questions that people may have about the data that they're about to use. So there's an abstract, a purpose, publication date, gets to the currency. Contact information, if you have questions about the data, what the attributes of the data mean. That's always very important. A lot of people have questions about that because sometimes the labels of the attributes in the GIS file are not very, not be easily interpreted. So the metadata comes in handy. And just a lineage of other information. And then we'll also supply the download link right here so you can get to it. Imagery is handled a little bit different. Raster data. This is probably the most popular tool page on this portal. That's where users can get to imagery and download it. And the imagery is supplied in two different formats. If you're using imagery from 2010 or newer, it's going to be a TIFF file. And if you're using imagery, downloading imagery from the portal that's pre-2010, it's going to be Mr. Sid addressed. I'll just demo real quick how to use this. It's very, very simple. I define where I want to zoom in, a specific area. Black Mountain, let's say for instance, and I want to download some imagery around Black Mountain. Click the Draw Polygon tool, and I'm defining a box on the map. And it's up to, how many square miles? 80, around 80, 85 square miles that you can define. Pretty good chunk of real estate. So when I define that area, I release the mouse button. What it does is it goes back to the server and tells you what year's imagery intersects that green box that we just drew. I can zoom in further at this point if I wanted to. Oops. It's user error. I can zoom in further if I desire. And preview the data before I actually download it. So there's 2002 imagery for that area. 2006, and 2010, which is statewide. And then it's as easy as just clicking the checkbox to the imagery you want, entering your email address, clicking download. That spawns the process off the server, and when it's ready, you'll get an email with a link to a zip file that you download to your desktop, unzip it, and you're ready to go. That's it for this one. Okay, any questions? We'll take it back to Brett.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this early on. I mean, one of the reasons that we are the only two staff that are dedicated to this project, so we work with each other on a daily basis. And one of the reasons I think that we work well together, right? Sure. Okay. Is that we're fairly informal. I mean, we're diligent, but we're blue jean and t-shirt type guys. So if you guys have any questions or comments, don't be bashful. So as he went through, particularly with the imagery, why would someone in local government want to come here and access this? Well, starting in 2010, chances are that your county has it, right? You got a delivery once the flight was complete. But there are local governments that have foregone posting that data locally on their servers and simply point to the web service that this is based upon. So it avoids local administration, avoids storage costs, et cetera, for you. Simply point to this. In terms of performance, not to get too detailed, but in terms of performance, we're averaging less than a second response time. And that will support any projection of any map that could possibly be used in North Carolina, so at any scale in addition to that. So we talked about, or we showed how you could get the data, what formats is it available in. Well, some of it's geospatial specific, some of it's not, which might be applicable in other departments in your area. We strive to make every piece of information that's available on the geospatial portal available both as a download, which you just demoed, but also as a corresponding web service. And on the web service front, we offer a REST endpoint for that. You can get that back as XML or JSON, KML. You can do a SOAP request, which is XML, of course. And then we also support 2 open geospatial protocols, WMS and WFS. So really you can take your choice of how you want to access any data set in web service using those formats. And then, as he mentioned, in terms of the download, if you have an offline business need where web service isn't going to work for you, we support MS Access and ShapeUp. So obviously, if these data can be plugged directly into traditional GIS applications like ESRI ArcGIS or QGIS, they also, by using the services or shapefile, can plug into CAD packages such as Bentley, MicroStation, and AutoCAD. But by using the web services, you can also create quick mashups. So I know we talked right before the conference about Gaston County doing the JavaScript-based overhaul of their online web viewers. I mean, here's a sample of a loan office application, and it does have some map components, but it's the queries that go on behind it to show the risk of an individual and whether they're going to give them any money or not. Because we do support standard non-geospatial things like JSON and XML, SOAP, and whatnot, I mean, really, you could do querying on that data and it not have any geospatial or GIS angle to it. I guess I should say it will have a geospatial angle to it, but you could do any query on any of those attributes. It doesn't have to be, the person in the tax department doing a buffer on something to give you an answer. I mean, you could use the web service to do querying on that and use any of these data to get answers that may or may not be geospatial. So Dave's going to do a quick demo on how you might do that.
Brent just mentioned the term ArcGIS. Is everybody familiar with that? Anybody don't know? That's the flagship, thank you for the honesty. That's a flagship product, software product from ESRI, which is probably the leading geospatial company in the world. So this is it. This is the most recent version of ArcGIS. I just wanted to demo real quick how easy it is within ArcGIS to bring in geospatial data. So I just want to hit the Add Data button, and it brings up a dialog where I just navigate, like any other program, navigate to the data that should be. Just double click it, brings it in, and check boxes, and there you go. You can also see the attributes. Right click on the layer, and open the attributes, and you see the attributes. So this is a water supply watersheds. If you can also stream in web services and connect to the NC OneMap server, so you have access to all the web services that we produce from our servers. And to do that, I'm going to connect to the web server. Just a second. Double clicking Add ArcGIS Server. I want to use the services available, and then I want to enter the URL. And I'm going to magic URL is services.ncOneMap.com/ArcGIS. I just hit, there's no username or password, it's all accessible. Just hit finish. And down here at the bottom, you'll see the addition of the NC OneMap services. So then you just navigate through these till you get the web service that you need. These are all vector web services, from animal down to watersheds. And then the imagery is in the imagery folder, elevations in the elevation folder, so on and so forth. So if I wanted to pull in imagery, for instance, I just take the resource, drag it over to the layer. Give them one without the directions. There we go. If you don't use ArcGIS, as Brett mentioned, we do support WMS, Web Mapping Services, and WFS, Web Feature Services, which are part of the OpenGIS consortium. So any software package that supports an OGC service can use these services. If you're a web developer, just a really quick other demo here. Bring this up just a minute, please. This is just a really simple. I'm not a programmer, and I was able to do this. Brett, of course, is one. He could do it in his sleep probably, but this is a really simple web map. It's just 50 lines of internet code, if you will. And all it does is it just calls one of the services here from our servers. And this could be any service that we support from our service. It's just one that I've chosen. It's just a really simple web application. It just uses an ESRI base map, and then the vector points here are the ones coming from our service. You can add tons of functionality into this if you wanted to. Legends, pop-ups, etc., and so on and so forth. So the point is that you can access the services that we create in a number of different ways. That's it for this go around.
Okay. So just before we jump on to the next slide, so I just want to make a comment and make sure this point's driven home. So if your shop happens to be an ESRI ArcGIS shop, you have instantaneous and always current access to any data set that we have by using the process that he just highlighted. And that is to connect using ArcGIS to our web server, our map server. And it just shows up as an option in your selection. And by expanding that, every single service that we host is accessible, which is a huge advantage. You want imagery, it's right there. You know, every time you open ArcGIS, you just expand and click on what you want, and away you go. And then also too, so there's a convenience there, obviously, but also too, it goes beyond your traditional GIS packages. You know, going into CAD, there's similar functionality there, where your CAD folks can pull that in. So we kind of focused on how to access the data and how you might use different clients to use it. Wanted to highlight 2 or 3 projects that are going on, bring your attention to, one of which is the ortho imagery project. I'm sure most of you are aware of that in some form or fashion. In 2010, the entire state was flown in one fell swoop. This image is ortho-rectified, which means that the point on that imagery is the same location as the point on the ground. It's 6-inch resolution. We'll show some examples here of what exactly that means. And then subsequent to that, each year, a quarter of the state has been flown. So, not the coastal plain, but the green area there came online this past February. The yellow area is being QC'd right now and will be online in February of next year. And then, of course, the purple area will be the following year. And Not putting this on the record, but all indications are is that process is going to continue. So you will have access every 4 years to this resolution imagery. And again, I really want to stress the convenience that accessing that as a service will provide to your shop. I mean, it's when people see it, they're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I've been downloading imagery and storing it locally for Project A, Project B, Project C. That's not, you don't get these squirrels of data that are occupying space over time, and then, you need to go back to that area at some later point. You're like, okay, where did I stick that data? Well, if you access it as a web service, you have it all the time. So here are some samples of that imagery. This is the North Carolina down in Wilmington, C-130 out in Goldsboro. You can't see it, but the resolution of that imagery does allow you to read USAF on the wing. An intersection which you can see the turn arrows on there fairly close. You can see the shadows from the stoplights, etc. And there's also a football field of a pretty awesome team out of Boone.
That's right.
And you can read the letters on them, although they're not doing so well this year. Yeah. So for people that are tax people, it's 1 to 200, 1 inch to 200 feet type imagery. It's pretty sharp. So I advise you take a look at that. The second project is that we just completed was a pilot project in coordination with the EPA. Some of you folks may have been contacted about this as parcels. Again, we're trying to build that comprehensive, standardized, well-documented data set. And what the goal is to have statewide parcels available both as a service, like we talked about, and as a download. We recently completed that a couple months ago for 28 counties. The idea being is that data that is within your local tax department with differing attributes, differing names. I call it C_acres, and somebody else just calls it acres. Well, that doesn't really help when we try and synthesize that data together. We have a process, an online tool that allows you to just upload that data, and it will transform that data into a standardized scheme. So in this case, we have, let's pick, say, someone from Edgecombe County, Pasquotank County, and maybe that's Wilson County, I don't know, Franklin maybe. And it goes in the transformer, but then once what comes out is a standardized attribute field, and we have 65 attributes. And that's not to say each local government supports all 65 of those. Trust me, they don't. But the capacity is there for 65 standard attributes. And the idea is if this project, or as this project takes off, that this will help local governments QC their own data, and as well as adopt more fulfilled attribute fields. So once that transformation's occurred, of course, we throw it into OneMap and then share it with the world. So it's free for use without restriction. Right now, as I said, we have 28 counties in there. They're shaded there in the top left there. You can see a sampling of the standardized attributes after it's been transformed. And it really doesn't show up here, but we have parcel boundaries as well as a centroid point for each parcel. The goal is by the end of the calendar year to have about 55% of the state complete, with an ultimate goal of 100% by the end of next April. And as soon as they hit that target, then the refresh cycle will start up. So again, I keep coming back. I don't know why. I'm not an economic developer, but I keep coming back to a company that may be looking at North Carolina. I'm looking for a parcel of a certain size that is within a certain proximity to some type of road. With this, we can do that statewide. So that's going on there. And then the most recent project that's been completed is the addressing project. And was anybody involved or contacted or aware of this going on? Nobody? Okay. Well, your GIS folks were. So again, statewide data set, standardized attributes. Just finished completion of it. It's about If you ever wondered how many addresses were in North Carolina, the best guesstimate as of about a week ago was 4.9 million. It's one of the things they're really targeting is for use with the upcoming census. Also, next generation 911 that's coming down the pike. One of the big pushes there, and I'm not an addressing person, I wasn't directly involved with this, is to have fully spelled out address formats. That's a big push by the feds. It's a big push by public safety. So they did a lot of that. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that this was a one-time shot. So they did this one time before in 09, I think, 09, and it kind of sat on the shelf. And you guys know how frequently addresses change. So 5 years later, you know, it's getting pretty long in the tooth. So this is another one-time update that was done. But there is a significant interest, just like parcels, to have this routinely updated so that that data does stay relevant and valued. They are working with the census. Is that the next slide? Oh, got ahead of myself. So it was sourced from wherever they could get it. So in some cases they contacted your GIS shop and they're like, okay, here are the addresses. Sometimes they pulled them off. Came from wherever they could get it. That would be the most accurate. They standardized that. And like I said, it just finished 2 weeks ago, I believe. And they're in the final stages of packaging that all up for everybody. And we'll have that on the GeoPortal soon for download. They really think this thing has legs. I mean, with 911, next gen 911 coming down the pike, census coming up, I mean, there is a lot of interest in addresses. And a lot of uses for it too. You know, give me an address, I can do something with that. They're currently working with the Census Bureau to evaluate this initiative. And again, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the Census Geographic Support System Initiative. The key thing for you guys to know is why is it of value to you? We're looking at maintaining this addressing data set. And if you participate in this, then the requirements upon you when the census rolls around every 10 years will be greatly eased. And that's all I'm going to say about that. If somebody could tell me how arduous it is, but apparently it can be a real pain. Doing this and participating in this program will greatly lessen your level of effort on that. So those are three of the highlight projects that are ongoing and recently completed, and throw it over today for the last demo to show how someone might use that information.
So this is just a quick use case we threw together using imagery as a backdrop, eye candy, and the parcel data, which has been normalized, as Brett alluded to. Just to orient everybody, this is, I believe this is Onslow County here to the east, to the west. Yeah. Onslow County to the west and Carteret County to the east. So this is the parcel data, the actual data. The attributes have been normalized, so they're the same for all 28 counties, as Brett alluded to. So in this particular use case, throw up the beach access sites here. Let's say that a new beach access site has been cited here, and there's something particular about it that none of the other ones have, more parking or showers or a snack bar or whatever it is. It's unique as opposed to the other ones around it. So if you're in the state's Department of Environment and Natural Resources, you may want to, let's say you want to send out a pamphlet to everybody within a 5-mile buffer of that particular point. And you want to mail it to them. So what we can do here is simply what we want to do is simply buffer around that particular point. So I want to do a 5-mile buffer. This is the ArcGIS. Remember what it looks like.
in the demo good for this.
We'll try that again. Okay. Well, what would have happened is you would have seen the polygons, the parcel polygons be selected from this point 5 miles outward. So it would have gone over here to Onslow County, and back up here to Carteret. So with just those parcels, that subset selected, you can easily, hopefully this will work, you can easily bring up, that's why I did it. You can easily bring up
You gotta
the,
pick all of them, yes.
oh, those subset that's
Yeah.
selected. So if we had a subset selected for the 5 mile buffer, you could easily select out those parcels and therefore those normalized street addresses and use that in a mail merge and mailing a handful away and away you go. Sorry for the technical glitch there, but it's really that simple. And the parcel data makes it a lot easier with it all in one location and all the attributes the same. Back to break.
Okay, so what's coming up on the horizon? So the new ortho imagery will be coming online in February, as we mentioned. As proud as we are of the capabilities of the GeoPortal, I think everybody probably had the same reaction, and that is, boy, it looks a little dated in terms of the interface. That in combination with the idea of open data, we really want to try and find ways to increase the formats and accessible points for that information. So we're really going to be making a push at doing that in the next 6 months. So there'll be a new interface for that with new capabilities and new formats. And then finally, we'll be making the parcel push acquisition to increase those 28 counties again to have all 100 by the end of April next year. As always, we're a team of 2. We're readily accessible. Here's our contact information. If you have any follow-up questions, comments, gripes, nice gripes. And then also we're on the website, data.nc1map.com and services.nc1map.com. Our information is plastered all over there. And then also we maintain a blog on nc1map.com, which is another good way to get the latest on what we're thinking about coming up on the horizon or what we've recently accomplished. And again, it's just, we would welcome and appreciate any feedback. You know, typically, as you can probably tell, we generally speak to GIS groups. With you guys being a more broad audience from different perspectives, we would love to hear anything you guys have to say. So please give us a shout if you have an idea or a concern.
And that blog is also available as an RSS feed too,
Right.
so you can subscribe to that.
Yeah. So, yeah. This website's going to go get overhauled too. So we got some work to do. So that's pretty much it from our end. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this point?
How are y'all handling the parcel boundary, the boundary between the 2 different counties?
Right, conflation, make sure they match up and everything. So the premise behind that, well, the short answer is we're not. So in terms of geometry of how the polygons line up, we're not, the project's not concerned with that. It's really more about the attributes that are tied to it. I would be totally honest, I would have to go back and read the project webpage to find out if at some point in the future they're going to look at that. But yeah, I mean, certainly on the county borders, I mean, you know, it's all over the place in some cases.
So, some adjacent counties actually talk to their county, their neighbor, and they work out those differences ahead of time. So hopefully that same data, if they do that, hopefully that same data is uploaded to the transformer. So you've got a seamless, tightly integrated data set.
Sure. I mean, I know this is not y'all's department, but has there been any further discussion about, I know North Carolina right now is trying to survey an actual the actual boundary of North Carolina.
The state.
Is there plans then to bring that within an actual, do an actual survey of the county boundaries? Because like in our county, I work with like 3 different boundaries, parcels.
The boundary of the day.
Yeah, it's like whatever boundary one you want.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but if you want to shoot us a follow-up email, we know who's speaking about that.
Gary Thompson is the chief of the geodetic survey, and they do boundary surveying, I think, on request. They just finished the state boundary with South Carolina not too long ago.
So, yeah, give us a shout, we can put you in touch with them and kind of set the stage for you and maybe get that going. And I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but like with the parcels, since you mentioned it, I mean, some local governments are really using it as a QC tool. Cleveland County, Pam Carter up in Cleveland County, once she transformed her data, the transformer actually does QC checks on the attributes itself. And once she got that error list, she was able to go back and improve her data internally. So, of course, the idea is over time, that data gets massaged and improved, more accurate, and then, the geometry will follow after that. Anybody else? Okay, thanks a lot.